Griffin felt the warmth of sunlight softly filtering through the translucent curtains, brushing gently against his eyelids. It was an unusually pleasant awakening, one he hadn't experienced in years. Without opening his eyes, he allowed himself to linger in the comfortable sensation of peace. He was lying on a bed much softer than his own, enveloped in the subtle scent of lavender and vanilla. Strange, he thought, I don't use scented candles, and this definitely isn't my bed. The realization slowly crept into his mind, unsettling and foreign, yet oddly peaceful. When he finally opened his eyes, Griffin blinked several times, adjusting to the unfamiliar surroundings. He found himself in an elegantly furnished room bathed in soft morning sunlight, a room that spoke of intimacy and warmth. The walls were painted a soft cream, decorated tastefully with abstract art in muted colors. There was an elegant dresser opposite him, with delicate jewelry boxes and feminine perfume bottles neatly arranged atop it. Everything was strangely cozy, yet completely unknown. Slowly turning his head, Griffin froze. Next to him, beneath the soft covers, lay a young woman sleeping soundly. Her face was partially hidden by waves of silky amber hair, cascading over her pale shoulder. Her breathing was calm and rhythmic, and her eyelashes rested softly against her porcelain skin. Griffin's heart began to race, confusion and panic began rising within him. Who was she, and why was she in his bed, or rather, why was he in hers? He cautiously lifted his hand to rub his face, only to be stopped in mid-movement by the glint of gold on his finger. For a moment, his breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened as he stared, dumbfounded, at the gold wedding band securely resting on his ring finger. Griffin had never been married, nor had he ever even been close to an engagement. A sense of surreal dread crawled along his spine. Careful not to disturb the sleeping stranger beside him, he quietly slipped out of bed and stood up, his feet sinking into plush, expensive carpeting. He was dressed only in pajama bottoms he didn't recognize, luxurious silk ones he certainly didn't own. His heart pounding with confusion, he moved toward the large mirror in the corner of the room and stared at himself. He appeared unchanged, a young man in his late 20s, tousled dark hair, piercing green eyes, a slight stubble shadowing his strong jawline. But this ring on his finger, this room, this bed, this woman, they didn't belong in his memories. He desperately tried to recall what he did last night, but his mind drew a complete blank. It felt as if someone had gently erased the previous day, leaving behind only silence and uncertainty. Anxiety tightened its grip on his chest. Griffin knew he wasn't prone to memory loss, nor had he ever had issues with alcohol or substances that could explain the gaps. What in the world had happened? Behind him, the rustling of sheets interrupted his thoughts. Griffin's breath caught as he watched through the mirror's reflection. The woman opened her eyes, sleepily stretching and yawning softly. She turned her head, her eyes meeting his through the reflection in the mirror. Her expression brightened instantly with a tender, affectionate smile. "Good morning," she said warmly, voice soft and melodic, carrying a genuine sweetness that stirred something unfamiliar deep within his chest. "You're up early today." Griffin forced himself to smile back, hoping his confusion wasn't evident on his face. "Good morning," he managed, voice slightly unsteady. She sat up gracefully, pulling the sheet around herself, the silk fabric cascading gently down her slender form. Griffin averted his eyes politely, his heart still hammering with uncertainty. "You seem a little quiet today," she observed, tilting her head slightly as she regarded him curiously. "Are you feeling okay?" "I'm fine," he lied, though the rapid pulse in his neck probably betrayed him. "Just, not quite awake yet." She laughed softly, her eyes sparkling warmly. "You never were a morning person." The comment suggested a deep familiarity between them, something Griffin was utterly unprepared to confront. He needed answers, and quickly. Hesitating, he forced himself to speak again. "Maybe I'm still dreaming," he said jokingly, trying to mask his anxiety. "It's hard to believe that someone as beautiful as you would actually marry me." She laughed lightly again, a melodic sound that somehow both calmed and heightened his confusion. "Ah, flatterer. You proposed, remember?" She glanced down shyly, her cheeks flushing softly with delicate pink. "In that tiny cafe downtown, surrounded by all those roses." Griffin's mind was racing now, panic blossoming inside him as he desperately searched his memory for a cafe, roses, anything she described. Nothing emerged, just emptiness and frustration. He felt trapped in a bizarre reality, playing the role of husband to a woman whose name he didn't even know. He decided to risk the awkwardness. "Hey, sweetheart," he began hesitantly, carefully choosing his words, "I had the weirdest dream last night. I dreamed I couldn't remember anything. Crazy, right?" She paused, looking suddenly serious, almost worried. Then her smile returned, soft but guarded, as if hiding something beneath the surface. "It's just a dream, Griffin," she said gently, rising slowly from bed and stepping toward him. She reached out, taking his hands softly into hers. He could feel the warmth of her skin, the tenderness of her touch. Her amber eyes searched his face earnestly. "You're here now. We're together. That's what matters." As she gazed into his eyes, something tugged deep within Griffin, a whisper of longing, attraction, and profound sadness, something deeply familiar yet utterly elusive. Despite his confusion, he felt drawn to her inexplicably, compelled by a hidden force beyond understanding. "I'm sorry," he murmured softly, looking down at their intertwined fingers, feeling the unfamiliar wedding band pressing against his skin. "I'm just a little disoriented." "It's okay," she whispered soothingly. "I'm here with you. I always will be." Griffin nodded slowly, choosing silence. He couldn't voice the questions burning inside him, not yet, not without risking something he didn't fully understand. As she wrapped her arms around him tenderly, embracing him in a comforting hug, Griffin closed his eyes, wondering how long he could pretend before the truth inevitably surfaced. Deep inside, he knew one thing for certain: whoever this woman was, wife or stranger, she was already changing everything he thought he knew about himself. And whatever lay ahead would test not only his memory but his heart, in ways he had never imagined. Griffin sat silently at the small round breakfast table, tracing the rim of a porcelain coffee cup with his finger, deep in troubled thought. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, mixing gently with the subtle sweetness of blueberry pancakes that sat untouched on his plate. Across from him, the mysterious woman, his wife, apparently, hummed softly as she sliced into her breakfast, unaware of the storm raging inside him. Sunlight streamed through the expansive kitchen window, illuminating her amber hair like delicate strands of gold. Griffin stole cautious glances at her, studying her quietly, desperately searching his mind for even a flicker of recognition. Her graceful movements, the gentle slope of her shoulders, the way her lips parted slightly as she concentrated on her breakfast, all felt both utterly foreign and hauntingly familiar. Her very presence confused and fascinated him, creating an inner conflict he couldn't yet resolve. "You're unusually quiet today, Griff," she finally said softly, her amber eyes filled with gentle curiosity as she lifted her gaze to meet his. Her voice was warm, tender, and deeply sincere. She reached across the table, placing her delicate hand gently on his, sending an unexpected warmth radiating through his skin. "Are you sure you're okay?" He hesitated, wrestling internally with whether to admit his memory loss. But something in her expression, a subtle vulnerability beneath the surface of her calm, caused him to hesitate. Griffin sensed instinctively that there was something fragile about this moment, something he could easily shatter if he wasn't careful. "I'm fine," he managed quietly, offering a small, uncertain smile. "Just feeling a little off. Maybe I'm coming down with something." She squeezed his hand reassuringly, eyes softening even more. "Then let's take things slowly today. No rush, no plans. Just us." Griffin nodded, grateful for her sensitivity, yet anxious about being alone with her without a clue as to who she really was. She stood up gracefully, clearing the table with practiced ease, and Griffin watched her carefully, hoping her next words or actions might trigger some buried memory. But the more he watched, the more he felt lost. Nothing returned, not even the smallest recollection. After breakfast, she excused herself briefly, leaving Griffin alone. He quickly rose and began carefully exploring the house, desperate for clues to piece together his own forgotten life. The home was elegant, decorated tastefully with modern furniture, subtle paintings, and photos placed strategically throughout, pictures of their apparent wedding, travel photos from exotic places, and casual snapshots portraying intimacy and happiness. Griffin studied them carefully, his pulse quickening at the image of himself with the woman beside him, smiling genuinely. Could he really forget someone who had clearly meant so much? Suddenly, his phone vibrated in his pocket. Griffin quickly retrieved it, noticing another text message from the same unknown sender as before: "Don't trust anyone. Not even her." His blood ran cold. Heart racing, Griffin quickly typed back, "Who is this? What's going on?" No response came. Frustration growing, he tucked the phone away just as she returned to the room. She smiled softly, unaware of his inner turmoil. "You look tense," she observed, stepping closer. "Maybe some fresh air will help." He nodded, needing desperately to escape the oppressive uncertainty filling the house. They stepped outside together onto a sunny suburban street lined with oak trees, their branches heavy with leaves rustling gently in the breeze. As they walked, she slipped her hand into his with easy familiarity. Griffin's pulse quickened at her touch, both comforted and troubled by its intimacy. She led him toward a nearby park, strolling casually as she shared small stories from their shared past. He listened intently, quietly analyzing each word, hoping something, anything, might trigger a memory. She mentioned casual moments, dinners they shared, laughter with friends, but nothing registered as true. The sense of frustration building within Griffin felt suffocating, but he forced himself to keep calm. When they reached the park, she stopped suddenly beside a large oak tree, its branches casting dappled shadows on her face. Her expression softened into nostalgia as she pointed to a heart carved discreetly into the bark, bearing their initials, G+I. "You carved this the night you proposed," she murmured softly, voice full of warmth. "You said this tree would grow older with us." Griffin stared at the carving, his heart aching inexplicably. Her sincerity was unmistakable, he could sense that she truly believed every word. Yet still, nothing resonated. It was as if he was hearing someone else's story. She turned to him, smiling faintly, her eyes searching his carefully. "You really don't remember, do you?" Griffin tensed immediately, sensing she had finally perceived his confusion. He hesitated, fear tightening his throat, but decided honesty was his only choice. "No," he whispered, voice strained with vulnerability. "I don't remember anything. I woke up today beside you, married, and yet, I feel like I've never seen you before in my life." He expected shock or anger, but instead, sadness clouded her eyes. She took a deep breath, composing herself. "This has happened before," she admitted quietly, eyes shimmering softly with unshed tears. "Your memory, it fades sometimes. But each time, you've always come back to me." Griffin's mind reeled with disbelief and confusion. "You knew. Why didn't you say anything?" "I was hoping," she admitted softly, voice barely audible. "Every time, I hope you won't forget again." He watched helplessly as she turned away briefly, brushing tears from her cheeks. His heart twisted painfully in his chest, guilt mixed fiercely with his confusion. "Please," he said gently, taking a cautious step closer to her, "tell me your name. Tell me everything. Help me remember you." She turned slowly, meeting his eyes bravely, and whispered softly, as if sharing her name for the first time. "My name is Iris." As Griffin repeated the name silently, the sound resonated strangely in his heart, like a lost echo returning from a great distance. Yet, even hearing her name, no memories surfaced, only a sense of haunting familiarity mixed with desperate confusion. As they stood beneath the shade of the tree, silence stretched between them, heavy and uncertain. Griffin stared into Iris's eyes, knowing deep down that whether she was truly his wife, a stranger, or something even more mysterious, she had already changed his world forever. Whatever came next, he knew he had no choice but to trust her. At least, for now, the silence in the house grew oppressive as evening descended. Griffin sat alone in the dimly lit living room, staring blankly at the shadows that danced across the walls. Iris had stepped out briefly, leaving him with nothing but his spiraling thoughts and a creeping sensation that the truth was just beyond his grasp. Every attempt to remember Iris, or even himself, left him feeling more isolated, like trying to hold water between his fingers. Restless, Griffin rose abruptly and began pacing the room. His eyes wandered over the carefully curated life he didn't recognize, photographs of smiling faces, sentimental souvenirs from places he couldn't recall visiting, books stacked on shelves whose titles seemed utterly unfamiliar. Every object was a small reminder of how utterly disconnected he felt from this existence. As Griffin moved toward a narrow hallway, he noticed an ornate wooden door slightly ajar at the end. Curious, he approached quietly, pushed it open, and found himself in what appeared to be Iris's private study. The room was neatly arranged with a feminine elegance, vintage desk, ivory chair, shelves lined with journals and delicate ornaments. A large corkboard dominated one wall, pinned with notes, photographs, and scraps of paper. Drawn forward by an instinctive curiosity, Griffin stepped closer, his pulse quickening. Scanning the board, his eyes narrowed. Amid postcards and keepsakes, one photograph caught his attention, a faded picture showing two identical young women smiling brightly, their arms wrapped around each other lovingly. Both had amber hair, pale skin, and matching warm smiles. Beneath the photo, scrawled in elegant handwriting, were two names, Iris and Saoirse. Griffin's heart skipped painfully. Saoirse. The name felt vaguely familiar, a whisper from some distant past he couldn't quite reach. But Iris had never mentioned a sister, or had she, and he simply couldn't recall. Confusion drove him deeper into the study. Griffin turned to the desk, noticing a stack of leather-bound journals neatly piled beside an old-fashioned brass lamp. Carefully, he opened one and began flipping gently through the pages. Iris's handwriting filled every line, precise, flowing, heartfelt. As he read, Griffin's eyes widened in disbelief. Each entry was meticulously dated, describing detailed accounts of his own episodes of memory loss. It documented days when he had forgotten Iris completely, times when she had patiently waited, hoped, and guided him back toward their shared life. Griffin's stomach twisted uneasily as he realized just how many times this had happened before. Hands trembling, he flipped further into the journal, discovering an entry from only days earlier. Griffin lost his memory again today. I thought we had finally moved past this. I feel hopeless, exhausted. He looks at me like a stranger, and each time it breaks my heart a little more. I don't know how many more times I can bear to lose him. Griffin swallowed hard, overwhelmed by Iris's quiet despair. Yet something still didn't fit. Why hadn't Iris mentioned any of this earlier? Why pretend that this was a rare occurrence? His eyes flicked toward another name, scribbled hastily at the bottom of the page, Dr. Alistair, with a phone number written beneath. Before he could consider it further, the sound of a door opening downstairs jerked him sharply back to reality. Quickly, Griffin replaced the journal and exited the room, closing the door carefully behind him. Iris's soft voice echoed gently from the hallway. "Griff? Are you home?" He steadied himself, taking a deep breath before responding. "In here." She entered the living room smiling gently, her face beautifully illuminated by the soft lamplight. "I brought dinner from your favorite place," she said, holding up a paper bag. Her eyes searched his expression carefully, sensing his unease. "Is something wrong?" Griffin paused, torn between honesty and caution. He took a measured breath before speaking. I found your study, he admitted softly. I saw your journals. Iris's smile faltered immediately, her expression shifting to guarded sorrow. She set the bag down slowly, lowering her gaze. You weren't supposed to see those yet, she whispered, voice shaking slightly. I didn't want you overwhelmed. I was trying to ease you into this. Ease me into what? He demanded softly, stepping closer. How many times have I forgotten you, Iris? How many times have we played this same heartbreaking game? She hesitated, her amber eyes glistening with tears. Too many, she confessed finally, voice thick with emotion. I've lost count. Griffin's heart twisted painfully. He felt torn between compassion for her obvious pain and suspicion that he was still missing some critical piece of truth. He took another step closer, gently gripping her shoulders, desperate to understand. Iris, who is Saoirse? He asked softly, watching carefully as she visibly stiffened. Why haven't you ever mentioned her? Iris hesitated before finally lifting her eyes to meet his, sadness etched deeply in her features. Saoirse was my twin sister. She died 2 years ago, she explained, voice barely audible. You were very close to her, too. Something about Iris's tone felt incomplete, hesitant, as if she were withholding something crucial. Griffin's instincts screamed for answers, yet he held back, sensing her fragile state. Instead, he gently drew her into his arms, trying to offer comfort, though his own heart still raced with questions. I'm sorry, he whispered quietly against her hair. I'm sorry that I can't remember. I'm sorry for everything you've been through. Iris relaxed slightly in his embrace, her breath coming easier as she leaned against him. I know it's not your fault, she whispered softly. It's just, sometimes I wonder if we'll ever be truly happy again. Griffin felt her pain keenly, recognizing in her words a deep ache he instinctively longed to ease. But as they stood there in the quiet, holding each other in the shadows, Griffin knew he couldn't let it go, not yet. Iris had revealed only fragments of a larger truth, and the photo, Saoirse, Dr. Alistair, they all hinted at deeper secrets beneath the surface. As the night deepened around them, Griffin silently resolved that tomorrow he would seek out Dr. Alistair. Whatever secrets lay hidden in the shadows of his memory, he knew one thing for certain, the answers awaited him. And until he found them, neither he nor Iris could ever be free. Early the next morning, after Iris had left for work, Griffin found himself anxiously pacing the house once more, wrestling with a restless energy. His sleep had been fractured, plagued by dreams of unfamiliar faces and echoes of distant voices. As sunlight streamed gently into the room, he finally made his decision. He had to speak with the mysterious Dr. Alistair. Griffin carefully retrieved the small scrap of paper he'd copied from Iris's journal the night before, clutching it tightly in his hand. The digits of the phone number blurred slightly from the sweat on his palms. Taking a deep breath, he dialed the number, waiting impatiently through several tense rings until finally, a calm, professional voice answered. Dr. Alistair speaking. Griffin hesitated briefly, his heart pounding in his chest. Doctor, my name is Griffin, he began cautiously. I believe you know who I am. A brief pause followed, then Alistair's voice warmed with instant recognition. Ah, Griffin. I've been expecting your call. Surprised by Alistair's lack of hesitation, Griffin took a deep breath, carefully choosing his words. Doctor, my memories are fragmented. Iris has told me very little, but I found your number in her journal. Can we meet? Of course, Alistair replied gently, without hesitation. Come to my office immediately. It's time you learned the truth. Within an hour, Griffin was seated across from Dr. Alistair in a modest but tastefully furnished office in a quiet part of town. The doctor was a calm, dignified man with silver-flecked dark hair and piercing gray eyes that seemed to read Griffin instantly. Books and medical journals lined the walls, and the air was scented faintly by eucalyptus, comforting yet clinical. Dr. Alistair studied Griffin for a long moment before breaking the silence. Tell me, Griffin, how much exactly has Iris told you about your condition? Almost nothing, Griffin admitted, leaning forward slightly. I discovered the journals. She admitted this has happened before, but she's holding back. I don't understand why I keep forgetting her, or why my memory is so broken. Alistair nodded slowly, sympathy evident in his expression. Your memory loss is the result of an experimental treatment following a severe trauma. 2 years ago, you and Iris were involved in a tragic car accident. You survived, but Iris's twin sister, Saoirse, did not. Afterward, your memories became unstable, episodes of profound amnesia became frequent. Iris was desperate for answers. Griffin's chest tightened painfully at the revelation. So that's why I don't remember Saoirse clearly. Exactly, Alistair continued calmly. Iris was desperate to save you. She agreed to a highly experimental neurological procedure aimed at repairing your damaged memory centers. Initially, it appeared successful. But it quickly became clear that, although your physical health improved dramatically, your episodic memory began to reset every few weeks. Griffin leaned back heavily in his chair, processing the enormity of what he'd just heard. You're saying my memory resets completely every few weeks? Alistair nodded solemnly. Yes, but only selectively. Your mind appears to be deliberately suppressing traumatic memories, especially those connected to the loss of Saoirse. Iris made the difficult decision to shield you from these traumatic truths, hoping it might allow your mind to heal. Griffin rubbed his temples, overwhelmed. But I don't even fully remember Iris. Your subconscious associates Iris deeply with Saoirse, the doctor explained patiently. Each reset causes you to lose details of your life with Iris, because emotionally, your brain struggles to separate the loss of Saoirse from your relationship with Iris. Griffin hesitated before asking the next question, dread heavy in his voice. Doctor, why would Iris keep this from me? Why hide the truth instead of helping me face it? Alistair sighed softly. Love, Griffin. Iris has sacrificed tremendously out of love for you. Every time you reset, she's forced to rebuild your relationship from scratch, hoping each time will be the last. She carries an extraordinary emotional burden, one few could withstand. Griffin's heart twisted painfully. But how can I ever heal if the truth is always hidden from me? You can't, Alistair admitted gravely. That's why I'm relieved you finally sought me out. Your memory resets will only worsen unless we attempt something new, an aggressive therapeutic approach, one designed specifically to confront and heal your suppressed trauma. What does that mean, exactly? Griffin asked cautiously. It means directly confronting the memories you've lost, Alistair replied seriously. It means revisiting the accident itself, facing your grief, your guilt, your love. But understand, once we begin, there's no turning back. It may heal you, or it may shatter your mind permanently. Griffin sat silently, absorbing the gravity of Alistair's words. He thought of Iris, her gentle patience and the hidden anguish she'd endured alone. A fierce determination stirred within him. I have to try, he finally whispered. For Iris's sake, for my own sake, I have to face this. Alistair gave a gentle, reassuring nod. Very well. But first, Griffin, there's something more you must understand. A truth Iris herself may not even fully grasp. Griffin looked up sharply. What truth? Saoirse wasn't just Iris's sister, Alistair revealed quietly. She was your fiancée. You were engaged to Saoirse first. Iris entered your life afterward, supporting you through grief. Over time, your love for Iris became real, but your subconscious has never forgiven itself for moving on. Griffin felt as though the room tilted violently. His pulse quickened, a wave of dizziness washing over him. Saoirse was my fiancée. Yes, Alistair confirmed softly. You were engaged to Saoirse, deeply in love. Losing her broke you. Iris's presence healed your heart, but the guilt of loving Iris after losing Saoirse became an emotional prison. Griffin swallowed hard, emotions churning violently within him. Suddenly, all his confusion, his instinctive hesitancy toward Iris, made devastating sense. It wasn't just memory loss, it was subconscious self-punishment, endless grief, and guilt. Does Iris know this? Griffin asked, voice strained. Iris believes you truly forgot Saoirse completely, Alistair answered gently. She does not know your subconscious is at war with itself. She hopes love alone can fix this. Unfortunately, love alone is rarely enough to heal wounds as deep as yours. Griffin felt a renewed ache in his heart, thinking of Iris's unwavering faith. Can I ever be whole again, Doctor? Can Iris and I ever be free? Alistair leaned forward with sincerity and compassion shining in his grey eyes. It will be painful, Griffin. It will test you both deeply. But yes, I believe confronting your past is your only path to true healing. And if anyone can guide you back, it is Iris. Her strength is extraordinary. Griffin nodded slowly, resolve hardening inside him. He stood up, extending a hand firmly to Alistair. Then let's start as soon as possible. Alistair clasped his hand reassuringly. Then tomorrow morning, we begin. Be prepared, once we start down this path, you will see truths you cannot unsee. I understand, Griffin said quietly, feeling both fear and newfound courage surge within him. As he stepped out into the sunlight, he knew the path forward was filled with pain and uncertainty. Yet, for Iris, and for his own freedom, he was prepared to face anything, even the darkest corners of his own heart. Griffin returned home later that afternoon, his mind overwhelmed by the shocking revelations from Dr. Alistair. He felt as though the world had shifted beneath him, leaving him disoriented and unsteady. The knowledge that Saoirse had been his fiancée, and that Iris had stepped into his life afterward, opened a deep wound he hadn't even known existed. He entered the quiet house cautiously, stepping through rooms that now felt simultaneously familiar yet alien. The silence was suffocating, every shadow seemed filled with the presence of both Iris and Saoirse. His heart felt heavy with a sadness that transcended mere confusion, it was grief, fresh and raw, resurfacing with devastating intensity. Drawn by a deep ache to connect with his lost past, Griffin returned to Iris's study. He moved slowly, feeling a solemn reverence as he once again approached the neatly stacked journals and photos. This time, he opened a drawer beneath the desk and found a small wooden box intricately carved with delicate roses. With trembling fingers, he lifted the lid. Inside lay letters, folded carefully and bound with satin ribbon. The top envelope bore his own handwriting. A shiver went down his spine. He picked up the first letter and unfolded it gently. The paper was worn and creased, as though it had been read countless times. His heart pounded painfully as he began to read. My dearest Saoirse. Every day with you makes me believe that true love is not just a dream, but something tangible, alive, and precious. I can't imagine my life without you, nor would I ever want to. Soon, you'll be my wife, and nothing can take this happiness from us. Forever yours, Griffin. Griffin felt a sharp pang in his chest. His own words from the past echoed back at him, filled with an innocence and certainty that now seemed heartbreakingly naive. He continued through the letters, each one expressing a love so profound that it hurt him physically to read. The image of Saoirse slowly took shape in his mind, a vibrant, gentle woman who had once been his whole world. He replaced the letters carefully, feeling emotionally exhausted. Closing his eyes, he sank into the desk chair, gripping its arms tightly as the room seemed to close in on him. Suddenly, from downstairs, he heard the soft click of the front door. Griff? Iris's gentle voice called hesitantly. Are you home? Taking a deep breath, he slowly made his way downstairs. Iris stood in the entryway, still wearing her coat, her face pale and apprehensive. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Griffin could see she already sensed something had drastically changed. Griffin, she repeated softly, stepping forward slowly. What's wrong? He hesitated, his heart aching with a new understanding. I went to see Dr. Alistair, he confessed quietly. He told me everything, Iris. About the accident, the memory treatments, about Saoirse. Iris visibly paled, her lips parting silently in shock. Everything? Yes, Griffin confirmed softly, his eyes filled with compassion. That Saoirse was my fiancée. That I loved her deeply, and that you came into my life after she died. Iris took a shaky breath, turning away slightly to steady herself. When she finally faced him again, tears were streaming quietly down her cheeks. I wanted to tell you, Griffin, she whispered brokenly. But how could I? Every time your memory reset, I watched you suffer, watched you fight to rediscover our life together. I saw the way you struggled when Saoirse's name came up. I wanted to spare you that pain. I understand, Griffin said gently, stepping closer. But hiding the truth hasn't healed me, it's trapped us both. Iris stared down at her hands, shaking slightly. Griffin, I always knew I could never fully replace Saoirse. But over time, your love for me became real, I swear it did. And I love you so deeply, enough to accept living in the shadow of her memory. Griffin felt her pain deeply, sensing the weight of what she'd carried silently for so long. He reached out, gently taking her trembling hands into his own. Iris, please hear me, you don't deserve to live in anyone's shadow, not even Saoirse's. You deserve a love free from secrets, free from guilt. But how can we move forward now? Iris's voice was a fragile whisper. Every day, I fear that tomorrow you'll wake up and look at me as a stranger again. Griffin took a deep breath, his eyes unwavering. Dr. Alistair believes there's a way. But it means confronting everything head-on. It means facing the truth, the pain, the guilt, the grief, together. No more hiding. Iris looked deeply into his eyes, hope and fear battling openly on her face. What if facing it all only drives you further away from me? Griffin tightened his grip gently, sincerity radiating from him. Iris, maybe my mind keeps resetting because I've never truly confronted what happened. I've spent years running from memories I can't even recall clearly. I need you to help me remember. If there's any hope for us, this is it. Iris closed her eyes briefly, gathering strength. When she opened them again, determination shone through her tears. Then I'll do whatever it takes, she whispered resolutely. Even if it breaks my heart again and again. I'll stand beside you. Griffin stepped forward, gently pulling her into his embrace. She melted into him, allowing herself to be vulnerable, finally releasing the pain she had held for too long. For the first time since waking beside her days before, Griffin felt deeply connected, not because he remembered their life clearly, but because in this moment, he saw Iris fully, a woman whose strength was matched only by her love, a love he now wanted desperately to protect. Together, they stayed in the silence, wrapped in an embrace filled with grief, courage, and newfound hope. Griffin knew the path ahead would test them both in ways they couldn't yet imagine, but now at least they would face it together, openly and honestly. Eventually, as the evening shadows lengthened around them, Griffin drew back gently, brushing Iris's tears softly away with his thumb. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we'll begin to face everything we've avoided. No more secrets. Iris nodded bravely, managing a small, hopeful smile. Together. And for the first time, Griffin truly believed that they might have a chance, not to escape their past, but to finally make peace with it. The morning sky was heavy with gray clouds, casting a pale, muted glow over everything as Griffin and Iris entered Dr. Alistair's office. Griffin felt his heart beating unevenly, anxiety tightening his chest. Iris held his hand firmly, her fingers intertwined with his, a silent promise that she wouldn't let him face the truth alone. He glanced at her briefly, noting the determined strength in her eyes despite the paleness of her face. Dr. Alistair welcomed them gently, his expression calm and reassuring as always. The doctor guided them to sit together on a comfortable, plush sofa situated at the center of his private office, surrounded by shelves filled with psychology books, scientific journals, and small decorative items that lent an air of comforting warmth. "Today will be difficult," Alistair began, speaking softly yet seriously as he seated himself opposite the couple. "But if we're successful, it may finally give you the chance to heal." Griffin took a deep breath, steadying himself, and nodded silently. Iris tightened her hold on his hand, anchoring him to the present. "Griffin," Alistair continued gently, "to begin, you must allow yourself to revisit the night of the accident, fully. We need to confront that memory, explore the emotions it triggers, and address why your subconscious has fought so desperately to hide it." Griffin closed his eyes briefly, fear and apprehension evident on his face. He opened them slowly, meeting the doctor's patient gaze. "I'm ready," he finally whispered, voice strained with quiet determination. Dr. Alistair leaned forward slightly, his voice becoming soft and hypnotic. "Close your eyes now. Relax. Focus on my voice and trust Iris's presence beside you. Allow your mind to gently drift back 2 years ago, to that rainy night you've hidden from yourself." Griffin obeyed, closing his eyes, allowing Alistair's voice to guide him inward. Gradually, a scene began to form vividly behind his closed eyelids, a memory long buried surged forth like a wave breaking over him. It was raining heavily, raindrops pelting the windshield of the car as windshield wipers struggled to clear the view. Griffin was gripping the steering wheel tightly, Saoirse sitting in the passenger seat beside him. Her face was bathed in the soft glow of the dashboard lights, beautiful yet tense with anxiety. He could hear their conversation clearly now, a sharp disagreement. Saoirse's voice, gentle yet strained, echoed painfully through his consciousness. "You're rushing things, Griffin," she pleaded softly. "I just think we need more time before the wedding." His voice rose in frustration, mixed with hurt. "Why wait, Saoirse? Don't you love me enough?" Her eyes widened, pained and surprised at the accusation. "Of course I love you. But lately, it feels like I'm not enough for you, like you're looking for something I can't give." Griffin shook his head angrily, losing control of his emotions. "You're being ridiculous." He never finished the sentence. Suddenly, blinding headlights appeared from nowhere, heading directly toward them. Saoirse screamed, and Griffin felt his pulse surge with panic. He jerked the wheel violently, but it was too late. The deafening crunch of metal and shattering glass filled his ears as the vehicle spun wildly, out of control. His memory blurred, fragments disjointed and chaotic, screams and silence intertwined. Then, suddenly, he saw clearly again, smoke, blood, and silence. Saoirse lay beside him, motionless. Griffin's mind filled with desperate anguish as he reached out, touching her lifeless face, crying out her name in desperate disbelief. "I'm sorry," he whispered, weeping openly now in Alistair's office as the memory fully returned. "I'm so sorry." Beside him, Iris's soft voice whispered gently, calming and grounding him back into the present moment. "It wasn't your fault, Griffin." He opened his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks, heart-wrenching from fresh grief. He met Iris's steady gaze, struggling to find words. "I blamed myself all this time. She died because of me, because of my impatience, my insecurity." "No," Iris interjected firmly, gently placing her hand on his face, forcing him to hold her gaze. "Saoirse's death was an accident. You didn't cause it." Griffin shook his head, overwhelmed by guilt. "How can you forgive me, Iris? How can you even love me after knowing what I did, how I treated your sister?" Her eyes softened, filling with compassion. "Because I knew Saoirse. She loved you deeply, Griffin, despite disagreements or mistakes. And I know the person you are beneath this pain. I see your heart." Dr. Alistair gave them a moment of silence before gently speaking again. "Griffin, your mind has locked away this night, protecting you by erasing anything connected with it, including your ability to fully embrace Iris. You've been punishing yourself every day since. It's time you let go. Griffin slowly breathed, allowing Iris's reassuring presence to steady him. How do I even begin? You forgive yourself, Alistair answered calmly. You confront the truth openly, stop running, and stop hiding. Accepting responsibility doesn't mean condemning yourself forever. Only by accepting that you aren't solely to blame can you move forward. Griffin turned again to Iris, searching her face deeply. Iris, Saoirse is still a part of my heart, I won't deny that. But I want you to know clearly, my love for you is real. Even though my memories reset, my heart keeps finding its way back to you. I want to build our future from here, no more secrets or shadows. Iris's eyes welled with tears, but her voice was strong. Griffin, loving me never meant forgetting Saoirse. It means honoring her memory by choosing happiness again. And my greatest hope was always that you'd find your way back, not because you had to, but because your heart chose me again and again. Dr. Alistair leaned back, visibly moved by the exchange. Healing doesn't erase loss, it simply allows room for new love to grow. I believe that your love for Iris has been powerful enough to survive every reset, every challenge, every hidden pain. Embrace it now fully, without guilt. Griffin nodded slowly, wiping tears from his eyes. The deep ache in his chest was tempered now by newfound clarity. He looked into Iris's eyes, finally understanding that his love for her was not a betrayal of Saoirse, but a testament to life itself, a profound choice to live, heal, and grow despite tragedy. Quietly, Griffin took both of Iris's hands into his own, voice filled with sincerity and quiet strength. Iris, I want us to truly start over. Not because of fear or hidden memories, but because of love. Will you let me? Iris smiled softly through her tears, her voice unwavering. Always. In that quiet office, surrounded by books and fading sunlight, Griffin finally began to forgive himself, allowing grief to coexist peacefully with love. The path ahead remained uncertain, but Griffin knew, deep in his heart, that together with Iris, healing was finally possible, and the chains of the past were beginning to break. In the weeks following their emotional breakthrough at Dr. Alistair's office, Griffin and Iris slowly began rebuilding their life together, brick by painstaking brick. The process was not easy, healing rarely was. Griffin found himself grappling daily with the memories he had unlocked, the accident, Saoirse's death, the guilt he'd carried silently for 2 years. Yet each day, Iris stood firmly at his side, her quiet strength a beacon guiding him through the darkness. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, leaves turning golden and scarlet, when Griffin and Iris decided to visit Saoirse's grave together. Griffin hadn't returned to this place since the funeral, his mind had buried even its location along with all the painful memories. But today, he felt ready to face it, ready to embrace the grief fully without letting it overwhelm him. As they arrived at the quiet cemetery, Griffin parked the car and sat silently, looking out toward the rows of solemn granite headstones lined beneath ancient oak trees. He felt Iris's gentle touch on his arm, and he turned to her, drawing courage from her steady presence. Are you sure you're ready for this? Iris asked softly, her voice full of compassion and understanding. He squeezed her hand gently, nodding firmly. I need to be. We both need this. Together they stepped out into the crisp air, their feet crunching softly through fallen leaves. Griffin walked slowly, his heart growing heavier as they moved closer to Saoirse's resting place. Each step brought a fresh wave of memories, her smile, her laugh, the softness of her voice, yet, to his relief, the pain was no longer unbearable. Instead, it was an ache tempered by acceptance and love. When they finally stood before Saoirse's simple yet elegant headstone, Griffin paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. His eyes traced the engraving of her name, feeling a bittersweet warmth flood his chest. He knelt down slowly, gently placing a small bouquet of wildflowers, her favorite, on the grave. Hi, Saoirse, he began softly, voice trembling slightly. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to come back. I've been lost for a long time. Beside him, Iris gently placed her hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. I blamed myself for your death every day since you left, Griffin continued quietly, tears filling his eyes. I let guilt consume me, allowed it to take control of my life. But now, I'm starting to understand. Loving Iris isn't betraying you. It's honoring your memory, because you would have wanted us to live, to heal, to love again. A gentle breeze rustled through the branches above, as if responding gently to his words. Griffin smiled softly, feeling a sense of peace he'd thought impossible. I'll always love you, Saoirse, he whispered, his voice filled with warmth and genuine affection. But I'm finally ready to let you go. He stood slowly, turning to face Iris. Her amber eyes glistened with tears, yet her face glowed softly with quiet strength. Without speaking, Griffin took her hand, intertwining their fingers gently. They stood together in silence, absorbing the profound peace of the moment. As they returned home later that afternoon, Griffin felt lighter than he had in years. Their house, once a place filled with shadows and secrets, began to feel warm again, alive with potential and newfound hope. Days passed quietly into weeks, and Griffin discovered with relief that his memory remained intact. The dreaded reset never came, and each morning he woke beside Iris, remembering clearly the day before. His heart filled slowly with trust again, trust in himself, in his memory, in the stability of his love. One evening, sitting quietly together on their front porch as the sun set, Griffin reached into his pocket, removing a small velvet box. He had kept it hidden for days, waiting for the perfect moment. Iris, he began softly, turning toward her, his eyes shining with tenderness and certainty. You've given me a life I never thought I deserved, a second chance at happiness. I've asked you this question before, but this time it comes from a place of true understanding, with no shadows or doubts. He opened the box carefully, revealing a delicate, simple gold ring with a small, sparkling diamond. Iris's eyes widened in surprise, her lips parting softly. Iris, will you marry me again, this time with nothing hidden, nothing lost? Will you choose me, knowing everything we've faced? Iris's eyes filled with joyful tears as she nodded fervently, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Griffin. Always yes. He gently slipped the ring onto her finger, and then drew her close, holding her tightly in his arms as twilight painted the sky above them. Griffin felt an overwhelming sense of peace, knowing this moment was a true beginning, a new life born from honesty, acceptance, and the courage to love fully. Yet as Griffin drifted into sleep that night, holding Iris close, his phone vibrated quietly from the bedside table. He hesitated before picking it up, glancing briefly at the screen. An unknown number again, the message cryptic yet chillingly clear. You think you know everything now, but some truths are darker than you've imagined. Meet me tomorrow at the old cafe downtown, the one with the roses. You deserve the whole truth. Griffin's heart jolted painfully in his chest, his breath quickening. He looked down at Iris's sleeping form, peaceful and unaware, and felt fear grip him again. He had thought the past was finally laid to rest, but clearly, some shadows still lingered. He debated ignoring the message, yet deep down, he knew he couldn't. To truly start over with Iris, no questions could remain unanswered. Whatever the mysterious sender had to say, Griffin resolved to face it head-on. Silently, he replied. I'll be there. Sleep did not come easily afterward, but Griffin lay awake, watching Iris breathe gently beside him. He wondered if their fragile happiness could survive whatever darkness awaited him at the cafe. But one thing he knew without doubt, he would face it boldly. Iris had fought for him countless times, now it was his turn to fight for them both, even if it meant confronting secrets darker and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Griffin woke early, his heart heavy with dread and anticipation. Sunlight filtered through the bedroom window, illuminating Iris's peaceful, sleeping face. He watched her silently for a few moments, memorizing the soft curve of her cheek, the delicate rise and fall of her breathing, as if preparing himself for whatever lay ahead. Quietly, he leaned down, softly kissing her forehead, careful not to wake her. Then he slipped from the bed, dressed quickly, and left the house without a sound. The drive to the cafe, the place he had once proposed, surrounded by roses, was torturous. His pulse quickened with every mile, his mind racing through possibilities. Who could have sent the message? What truth could possibly be left uncovered? The cafe appeared ahead, picturesque yet unsettlingly quiet at this early hour. He parked the car, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The soft chime of the door's bell sounded jarring in the empty cafe. At a table near the back, partially obscured by a shadow, sat a woman with familiar amber hair. Griffin's heart nearly stopped in his chest. For a surreal moment, he felt as though he were staring at Iris, but he knew instantly, instinctively, that it was not her. Slowly, she turned, meeting his gaze, and Griffin felt his knees go weak with disbelief. Her eyes, pale green and intense, locked onto his, filled with both sadness and resolve. "Saoirse," he breathed, voice barely audible, disbelief flooding him. The woman stood slowly, moving gracefully toward him. Her resemblance to Iris was uncanny yet distinct, her expression more guarded, more mysterious. Griffin stood rooted to the spot, barely able to speak. "Hello, Griffin," she said softly, voice slightly trembling with emotion. "I'm sorry for all you've suffered because of me." "But, you're supposed to be dead," Griffin whispered hoarsely, his throat dry. "I saw you, after the accident, your body." Saoirse nodded slowly, sorrow darkening her eyes. "What you saw wasn't real. I survived, but barely. My injuries were severe, Griffin, so severe that I was kept in intensive care for months, hidden away. Iris knew, but she made the hardest choice of her life, to keep my survival secret from you." Griffin felt dizzy, struggling to understand. "But why? Why would Iris do that?" "Because she believed it was the only way you'd recover," Saoirse explained gently. "She loved you deeply, Griffin, enough to let you believe I was gone, hoping your memory would reset completely, freeing you from the pain of what happened." Anger and confusion surged through Griffin. "But what about you? How could she keep us apart?" Saoirse lowered her gaze, her voice heavy with pain. "I was broken, Griffin, physically and emotionally. I couldn't walk, speak clearly, or even recognize myself. Doctors told Iris I might never recover fully. She believed if you knew the truth, that I was alive but damaged, you would be trapped forever in grief and guilt. She tried to protect you from me." Griffin's chest tightened with disbelief and anguish. "Protect me? She destroyed me, Saoirse. I spent 2 years in a nightmare, haunted by the thought that I'd killed you." "I know," Saoirse whispered, tears filling her eyes. "But Iris did it from love. She suffered deeply too, living every day torn between loyalty to me and love for you. She never imagined you'd keep losing your memory. She believed eventually you'd heal, free from guilt, never knowing this painful truth." Griffin stepped back, breathing hard, grappling with the enormity of Iris's secret. His love for Iris now clashed violently with anger and betrayal. "How could either of you do this to me, to each other?" "We both made mistakes," Saoirse admitted softly. "I hid away, overwhelmed by shame and fear. Iris hid the truth, hoping it would save you. But seeing your suffering from afar, I finally realized you both deserve peace, real peace. No more lies." Griffin turned, suddenly needing air, stepping out onto the cafe's small patio, breathing deeply. Saoirse followed quietly, waiting patiently as he tried to calm himself. "You still love Iris, Griffin, I can see it clearly," Saoirse finally spoke gently. "Your love for her isn't diminished by knowing I'm alive. But you needed to know the full truth to truly heal. Love built on secrets isn't love, it's fear." Griffin met Saoirse's gaze, tears filling his eyes. I mourned you every day. I blamed myself endlessly. Now, seeing you alive, it's like losing you all over again. I know, Saoirse whispered tenderly. But you haven't lost me. You found the truth, painful as it is. And now you can finally move forward. I want you to forgive Iris, Griffin. She sacrificed everything, her peace, her happiness, for you. What about you, Saoirse? Griffin asked, aching deeply with compassion. You deserved better than this. She smiled sadly, a quiet strength radiating from her. I'll find peace knowing you and Iris can finally be happy, truly happy, without shadows. Let our love be a memory you cherish, not a burden you carry. Griffin felt warmth slowly returning to his chest as he listened, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. He stepped forward gently, wrapping Saoirse in a tender embrace, holding her close for one final, heartfelt moment. I'll never forget you, he whispered sincerely. Thank you for giving me the truth. She smiled softly, stepping back slowly, tears on her cheeks. Now go to Iris. Let honesty heal the wounds we all share. Griffin nodded, deeply moved. Without another word, he turned away, heart pounding as he drove home, determined yet fearful of what awaited him. When he arrived, Iris stood anxiously on the porch, waiting. Griffin saw the fear in her eyes and moved swiftly to her, gently holding her face between his hands. I know everything, Iris, he whispered, voice gentle yet firm. About Saoirse, your sacrifice, your pain. Why didn't you tell me? Tears spilled silently down Iris's face. I was terrified, she admitted softly. Terrified that knowing Saoirse lived would trap you forever in guilt and pain. Terrified you'd never forgive either of us. Griffin's expression softened with compassion. I forgive you, Iris. But from now on, we promise, no more secrets, ever. Iris nodded fervently, voice breaking emotionally. Never again. He drew her close, embracing her tightly, feeling the relief and gratitude pouring from her. Griffin knew their future wouldn't be easy, but this moment marked a true new beginning, one built entirely on honesty and trust. As the evening settled gently around them, Griffin realized the memory resets had finally stopped. By facing his darkest truths openly, he'd freed himself, and Iris, from the cycle of hidden pain. The past had returned in ways he'd never imagined, but now it was no longer his prison. Together, Griffin and Iris sat quietly, wrapped in each other's arms, ready to build a life free from shadows, finally understanding that love, real, honest love, could withstand any truth, no matter how painful. The past had tested them profoundly, yet their love had emerged stronger, brighter, and more resilient than ever before.